My name is Aldo Moro. It's always a pleasure coming your way. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. It's always that day that Ghanaians are looking forward to watching Metro TV and watching watching Inside Pages. On Inside Pages, essentially what we do is that we look into the pages and look at the stories that we believe are the most topical. We invite the right guests and then we ask them the relevant questions. My name once again is Aldo Moro. Two very important conversations that we intend to have this morning. The first one has to do with the developments in Washington, D.C., where the finance minister and a host of technocrats and experts are attending the spring meeting that's organized by the IMF, that's International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank Group, essentially to, discuss and look at matters that are affecting the global economy. And Ghana is there to make a pitch. Ghana is there to lobby and to speak to its external creditors to help it achieve board level approval. We all know that Ghana has been knocking at the doors of IMF for for debt relief. And so it presents Ghana with a fantastic opportunity to get that, and that's essentially why Ghana is there. It's everybody's there, all the actors, the key players, and so Ghana is there to speak to them to see how best they can help facilitate the overarching objective, which is to get an IMF deal. Now, so we'll be taking a flight to Washington, D.C. To basically find out what's happening there and to find out whether indeed the May promise would actually come on. Because, well, we're being told by the finance minister that likely by the end of May we'll get an IMF deal. So we'll find out how feasible that is. Now, the second topic, which has actually dominated the headlines and has captured all the news headlines as well, and it has to do with those comments largely described by a section of the Ghanaian public as being very irresponsible, very reckless, intemperate, inflammable, very incendiary, and very, very diabolic by the the Food and Agriculture Minister. That's Mr. Brian Champo is also a member of Parliament for the Bitifi constituency. There was a unity walk which was held. He took a center stage and he took stage and said all kinds of things about the NPP not handing power over to the NDC, and that's been subject to all kinds of interpretations. So we'll have a conversation about that, because some say ignore. It's just mere political talk. But some say, no, we're talking about the individual who's made those statements, and so this is not somebody whose statements you can wish away. Again, there's a background to certain statement that's been made by the president himself, His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who said he's only interested in handing over to another MPP government. We've had the likes of Lord Comey, Director of Operations at the presidency. He's also been citing comments about it's never under his tenure will the MPP hand over power to the NDC. So they say there's a certain trajectory. So what is the NPP on about? That's what we'll try and explore. Or it is the case that some persons are deliberately misunderstanding what the MPP is intending to do in 2024. So these are more coming up on Inside Pages. Stay tuned in. My name once again is Aldo Moro. I will be right back.
Let me say that we have been in constant contact with the authorities in Ghana. We have worked very hard and very swiftly to have the a program for Ghana, 3 billion support program for Ghana in place. We have been urging Ghana's creditors to act swiftly. My appreciation for also the proactive role of the Minister of Finance of Ghana in reaching out to creditors. We are expecting that next week there will be discussions among creditors, and I can tell you that I use every opportunity myself to urge them to act swiftly. Let's remember that Ghana for a long time has done really well to tap markets to finance its growth path. It has been all innocent bystanders hit by COVID, hit by the war in Ukraine, and it has complicated domestically the ability to finance the budget. So a country that has long track record of sound macroeconomic management ought to be supported to return to markets. So our program is a bridge for Ghana, and to tell you the truth, I'm actually quite optimistic. I think Ghana is going to move. The creditors are going to move, and we are going to move swiftly. So I guess the short answer to you is stay tuned and stay positive.
The need and the sense of fierce urgency to conclude our discussions with the Paris Club for them to then submit the assurances to the fund. I think Ghana has done a number of things. First of all, with regards to the Paris Club, yeah, we did travel to China. We've sought support from India and the Saudis, and then really maintained an open relationship with the club. We did get in to the club, letting them know that we were worried about the track record of the common framework. We have had good reception. We really do commend the Paris Club for the sense of urgency and that they have, and we are confident that they will be able to bring the assurances to the bank in the coming week or so.
The domestic debt bondholders sat with government and identified 83.5 billion cedis of money that could be brought back into their purse if we cut out waste, identified corruption, revenue loopholes, and leakages. But today we are in Washington begging for 36 to 40 billion cedis of relief. So what's our priority? The second is that I think the issue is leadership, because it is wrong strategies that have brought us here and lack of follow-through when we did have a good strategy. And it's also this failure to recognize that even the economy itself sometimes needs to be innovated. It needs to be renovated. We need to innovate skills, we need to innovate products, we need to innovate our products and services. But we have not had the kind of leadership that could see that and tackle that. So we have, to go back to the point, chased after revenue. And that has become our God, our master, and our death.
All right, welcome back. We just played you some excerpts of press conferences and events that have taken place in the course of the week about the economy. We just had, Mr. Yamson, Michael Yamson, talking about his take on the state of the economy and why we are where we are today. Now, so this morning's program has been structured in a very special way. Now, first of all, we'll be speaking to Guta. Guta has some concerns about the 3 new taxes that have been introduced and passed in Parliament. But remember, that hasn't been accented by the president yet. But Guta has been pushing for these taxes to be looked at again. In fact, they would wish these taxes are jettisoned entirely. And so we'll be speaking to Guta on why they're still insisting that the president does not assent to it. And then Mr. Joe Jackson, who is the Director of Operations at Dalex, it's a very beautiful presentation he would be making about what's happening to what we're actually doing in Washington, D.C. at the spring meeting, IMF World Bank Group spring meeting, and why this is critical for Ghana. This is a make or break affair. It's actually a do or die affair for Ghana. We have to get the deal because everybody who you need to speak to is there. So Mr. Joe Jackson would throw some more light on why this is important. Also, more importantly, where we are now with our DEX restructuring and what we need to do to be able to meet the conditions that will give us the IMF deal. So Mr. Joe Jackson has a special presentation to make as well. And then we'll move to the Brian Achampon's commentary and all the, how do you call it, the back and forth. In fact, the MPP, following the NDC's petition to the police CID or the police IGP to invite Brian Achampong for some questioning. In fact, they feel that Brian Achampong should be arrested, but we'll find out whether there's some legal basis for that. You know, it's something that a private legal practitioner will be joining us to have a conversation with us on. And then a day after, we also heard the NPP say that, well, if you want Brian Achampong to be arrested, then let's also invite the former president, John Dramani Mahama, for saying that the 2024 elections will be a do or die elections. And so it's been a back and forth between the two major political parties. And so we'll have a conversation about that as well. But in the meantime, let me go to the Zoom. Sorry, before I do that, let me introduce my resource persons who've joined us this morning. First of all, on my immediate left is Mrs. Beatrice Annan. She is the deputy spokesperson for the JM campaign. And I think the congratulations is in order. Beatrice, good to see you. Good morning.
Morning to you, Moro.
And how are you?
I am fine, but I am tired.
I can tell.
We've been doing the campaign yesterday. Right. We came back from Adan.
Wow.
And 4 days ago, we've been in the Eastern region.
Right.
We've done 9 regions.
Wow.
And
wow.
It's been
in fact, I'm going to come back to you to throw some more light on what the campaign has been up to, because it's order. I mean, you're one of the your regular guest here, and if you have been elevated to that position, it's important that we get to know what you've been up to as our friend, you know. And also Saka Salia, a very good friend of mine as well. Saka Salia, it's good to see you. Good morning. Yeah. How are you? I'm doing first time on the show.
Yeah, first time on the show.
Don't worry, there won't be any baptism of fire. Don't worry. It's a very friendly community.
Oh, I don't think so.
Anyway, so Saka Sale is also a member of the MPP's communications team. He's also with us here. And Mr. Joe Jackson is here, actually, but he's just he's sipping on some tea. He doesn't joke with his tea. So when he's done with that, he'll come and he'll do his presentation. And the reason why he's been granted the permission to sip on some tea is also because we're going on Zoom to talk to that's Dr. Joseph Obeng. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us on Inside Pages, sir. Please unmute your sound so that we can hear you, sir. Yes, just unmute. Once you're mute, we should be fine.
I've done it. I've done it. Can you hear
so
me?
Dr. Joseph Obeng is the president of GUTA. Mr. Obeng, can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you. Okay. I'm all right. The fault is yours.
I can't hear
Mr.
Joseph Obeng. We hope that we... Okay, so Mr. Joseph Obeng has joined us via Zoom. He has some serious concerns about the taxes that have been passed in Parliament. He and his group believe that if these taxes are sent and it becomes law, the businesses will collapse because already they're reeling under some very, very harsh economic situation. They haven't come out of it yet. And so these taxes just further going to collapse their businesses. Mr. Obeng, I hope we have a clearer line now.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Right. So we'll do this. There have been two developments. So GUTA and a group of other businessmen, they call themselves the Ghana Joint Business Consultative Forum on Tuesday, held a news conference where inter alia they talked about the fact that there hasn't not been any effort on the part of the government to engage the business community and seek their inputs, and that businesses are already overburdened with numerous taxes. Therefore, the passage of these new taxes will lead to collapse of businesses in the country. That again, the taxes will have rippling and cascading effect on businesses and the consuming public as well. That the government could have adopted a different strategy for enhancing revenue generation in the country as a better alternative to the IMF program rather than these obnoxious taxes. Now, Mr. Obeng, first of all, let me say a very good morning to you once again and say thanks for joining us. Now, you have on two occasions, so apart from the the Joint Business Consultative Forum where you called for these taxes to be jettisoned, you've actually issued another statement where, first of all, you're praising the government for bringing inflation down and also for stabilizing the forex, but then you still feel that, look, these taxes won't be helpful to your businesses, and so you're looking up to the president not to sign it? Throw some more light on these concerns that you've expressed.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, sir. I can hear you.
Yeah, very well. Let me first of all react to the press release that we did. I think people have misconstrued the whole statement.
Okay.
What we are saying is that government should take advantage of the downward trend of the exchange rate to bring the inflation further down. It means that we do not accept the new rate of inflation. The 45% is not acceptable, and that we started from 13.5 in 2021 and compounded it because monetary policy rate will be increased and compound the problem, and we are here where we are. The exchange rate was also very high last quarter of the year 2022, and it also compounded the problem. So the effect of inflation on businesses is very bad for businesses because the purchasing power of the consuming public is reduced drastically, thereby curtailing the turnover of businesses. If you are unable to turn on our businesses, it means that you are unable to service our debt. Our debt that is also compiling huge interest because of the high rate of the interest rate. So it means that businesses are collapsing. So when we bring down inflation, it will augur well for businesses. And so what we seek to say in the press release is to urge government on to do even more to bring down inflation to the barest minimum. And that's what this press statement seeks to achieve. And that's, we thought, we advise government to sustain the appreciation of the cedi if you want inflation to come down. It means that stability of the cedi itself is very important. That the SM rate should not come down today and tomorrow it goes up. It means that people are unable to even reduce and respond to any positive gains that we get, because we are not sure whether it will be sustained. So we urge government to be able to sustain and stability that we have it. We also said that customs should also adjust the valuation rates down to reflect the downward trend of the exchange rate as we are experiencing, so that duties can come down. It is very important. Then we also urge Bank of Ghana to drastically reduce the monetary policy rate. Drastically reduce it, because how can you, why do you want to fight inflation when it is not demand pull? The inflation that we are experiencing here is as a result of accumulation of cost of doing business. These taxes that we are paying, the duties that we pay, the VAT that moved from 3% to 22%, all these have.
Hello, Mr. Obeng. Sorry, I think I've lost him, and it's unfortunate I've lost Mr. Obeng. And he was actually reiterating the point about the cause of inflation, and he's asking the central bank to reduce its monetary policy rate because he doesn't think that using the hiking the monetary policy rate as a way of taming inflation it has worked, and that he believes that the problem more has to do with the fiscal side of things, of which now we're talking about the 3 new taxes that are going to be introduced. In fact, when these 3 new taxes come online or come on stream, it would have an impact on inflation, definitely, because they're going to pass it on to us. But that's where he was. Once we get back to Mr. Obeng to conclude on that, and then I'm going to ask him, so what do they intend to do next? Because the president may or may not sign. We're picking up some information that the president is still thinking through. Well, Sakasali is thinking about whether to accent the bill or not, depending on some other factors. So we're trying to get Mr. Joseph Obeng back to continue from where he left off. Maybe this is a good time for Mr. Joe Jackson to join us because he's got a presentation to make on what's happening in Washington, D.C. Spring, IMF, World Bank spring meeting, and a lot is happening there. Finance Minister with a group of technocrats are in Washington, D.C. to try and get and talk and lobby and make a pitch why our external creditors should help in Ghana's effort to restructure our debts, and also for in order to meet a precondition for the for us to get the board level approval from the IMF, and then the subsequent or consequential actions. And so, Mr. Joe Jackson, it's good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to see everyone.
I hope you're doing well, sir.
And one of my favorite ladies.
Yeah. Well, you haven't congratulated her yet, have you?
Congratulations.
Yes.
Well done.
You have
well
to.
Done. Well
you have
done.
to. Otherwise, she'll fight you.
I just wanted to make a comment.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
The president will sign.
He will?
He will sign.
I'm surprised more.
He doesn't have a choice.
He doesn't have any choice.
All this is smoke and mirrors.
Really?
Yes. You see from my presentation.
Okay.
That's one of the constitutions precedent to the IMF deal. So what's this? He will sign, he won't sign.
But the IMF was not specific that go and increase taxes. It says, show us revenue enhancement measures.
Hello. So you don't sign. Where are you getting the revenue enhancement?
Well, we can cut back. You have asked that one of the ways in which government can also sustain its debt is to cut back on expenditure. If you can't increase revenue.
There were two separate conditions. Cut expenditure.
Increase revenue?
Increase revenue.
It's as simple as that.
It's as simple as that.
What do you have for us? Whilst we're waiting for Guta to join us.
So after this dance about, you won't sign.
It's all smoke and mirror,
Oh, it's all smoke and mirrors. You'll be signing. You will sign.
You will sign.
You
mean gladly?
Oh, you will sign. You sign. Don't worry.
I see.
That's
So let me.
That's if he hasn't signed already.
Well, let me go back online and speak to the Guta president. Mr. Obeng, welcome back. Yes, we lost you, Mr. Obeng. Welcome back. Okay. Right. So there's a challenge. Well, he actually mentioned to us that he was traveling, so perhaps that's why there's a bit of a challenge with connection. But Mr. Obeng, do we have you back? Because I need him to wrap up on this submission so that we can go to Mr. Joe. Because once Joe starts, it will be difficult for me to cut in. Okay. So I've just got instruction for Mr. Joe Jackson to head to the touch screen and do your thing, sir. So you have IMF bailouts, the story so far,
yes,
or the story
so
thus far. Okay. Right. Do we have? Okay. Please go ahead.
It was just what I tried to do today was to do a quick recap as to where we are in this whole process.
All right.
Right. And you will notice that this process started in July.
Right.
And the president made the announcement on the 1st of July. So when you think about it, 1st of April is 9 months. That's actually not a bad timeline to get an IMF deal done. It is the pressure that the ministers of economy have put on themselves by this deadline and how dire our situation is. That is making the issue serious. But listen, and the IMF responded. By the 6th of July, our first mission was here.
Right.
By the 22nd of September, they had done work and submitted on the second mission. 1st of December, another mission. By 5th of December, trouble starts. The domestic debt exchange program, our famous haircut starts. 12th of December, from 1st July to 12th of December, we have a staff level agreement. That is almost record time. That's not bad. Then we went on to, we applied to the G20 to use the common framework for debt treatment so that we could have a comprehensive framework for attending to all our debt. Then what happened? On the 19th, we raised our hand and said, I can't pay. We can't pay anymore. So between the 1st to 19th, we had declared that we couldn't pay. Then what happened? By the 21st of February, after all the back and forth, we had finalized the DDP. Now, listen, again, that is record territory. In other countries, it took 9 months and more for the domestic debt exchange program to be certified. Then we missed this deadline. But this time, of course, we have been running so fast that we missed the deadline. What's happening now? We missed the deadline because we haven't finished all the things that we are supposed to do. One of them included the passing of the revenue enhancement bill. That nice little catch. Revenue enhancement bill. And the negotiations are ongoing.
Right.
There are good noises coming out. There's a supposedly good vibe. Right? But hey, we'll be blessed if we can get it done by the 31st of May.
Okay.
That's really the story so far.
Right.
The issue is this. Everybody keeps asking, what happens if we don't get it done? Well, let me tell you, at this moment, our reserves have run precariously low. When I say precariously low, it means that if it was not for the fact that we had stopped paying our external debtors, we would have crashed as an economy by now. When I say crashed, how? There'll be no dollar to buy fuel. If there's no fuel, it means we can't have electricity. If there's no fuel, then it means we can't have, there's doomsday, and then there's no fuel for our trucks and our vehicles and all the other bits and pieces that go for it.
So energy crisis.
Energy crisis. That's
Right.
going to be the first sign. Because if there's no dollar, right, you can't import your drugs.
Right.
You can't do anything. So it's a scary thing. Now, everybody has kept, one of the things we've done is this. We've kept this economy, what I call an induced coma. We're not paying anything. We're not spending any money. Because the more we spend in Ghana, as you spend, people import more.
Right.
So we've induced the coma. You can see the evidence, the ports, nothing much is happening. Talk to the ministries. I mean, yesterday there was a report that one of the Ministry of Health says don't even use the lift because we can't even afford to maintain the lift for our premises. What we have is an induced coma because they want us to spend the least amount of money possible until they can sort this deal out and stabilize the economy. There's some things that are important. There's a checklist, right? The domestic debt restructuring. We all thought it had been fully done. I need to talk a little bit about that because there's still a lot more to be done, right? They asked us to restructure external debt. That's what we are looking for, negotiating with China, with the multilateral partners, with the foreign bondholders. That's what we're doing now, right? One of the key things, government should not get credit from Bank of Ghana. That has been signed. I would like to posit that even one of the challenges we've had in this economy is that the government has received deficit financing, and that has fueled inflation. And if you hear Dr. Obin talk about inflation, and if you hear people struggling, inflation is plenty money chasing small goods. Where's that plenty money coming from?
It's been printed by the central bank.
Not printed. You see, when you use the word printed, it's emotive and it smacks. It's deficit financing.
Right.
So they've increased the money supply. Go and check the growth of the money supply. It's deficit financing. Let's put it in the terms that don't, if you say print money, I see somebody goes there, cranks some machine, puts dollars and comes to put on the table. That's not it. You're just giving somebody credit when there's nothing to back it. We also have, so that's been done now, right? Of course, COVID, the audit of the spending, that had to be done. We've done that for better or for worse. Then, a tariff adjustment. Electricity tariff adjustment, that's part of the checklist. Then, you got to move all those statutory funds, get funds, etc. The local district assembly common fund, you got to move them onto GIFMIS so that there can be more transparency as to what's going on. All that has been requested. And then the tax, revenue enhancement, right? All that is part of the checklist.
So you describe these as prior actions?
Yes, you
that we
have to
needed to
do
take.
them in order to get to the point where we can sign off at the board.
Right. Condition
Right.
precedent, right.
Now, the challenge you have is that domestic debt has two parts. One is called government bonds and notes, Dachi bonds,
ESLA
etc.
and all of that, yeah.
But there are some other components that also have to be dealt with. Call it, and that's what the finance minister talked about. There's been an attempt to walk back, but I'm not sure whether, you see, debt is debt. And there's some debt that the government is holding. Cocoa bills, 8.1 billion. At this moment, there's even some restructuring going on in the cocoa bills. If you are a corporate holder of cocoa bills, at this moment, they are rolling it over without your permission. There's something that has to be done on cocoa bills. So expect that to come in. Call it phase 2. There are people who have bought dollar bonds locally. That's another 6.9 billion. That has to be looked at. Phase 2. Pension funds, 29.2 billion.
That appears to be the elephant in the room, isn't it?
That is the elephant in the room because there's
29.
some agreement of some sort with
That we won't touch your
that
pension
won't
funds.
touch pension funds. But if you listen to the Minister of Finance carefully on one of your sister stations, he says, he puts it very nicely. He says, we are asking the pension funds to assist us to alleviate our problems with debt service. How are they going to assist you? They can only assist you by extending the tenor of the debt or the period of which the debt will be paid, or reducing the interest to be paid. There's no, we can massage it, but it is what it is. Then you call this the elephant in the room. There's a bigger elephant. Bank of Ghana. This is non-marketable debt, 77 billion. We have to deal with it. And then there's a tiny amount which is in other local currency loans of about 0.7 billion. That's not really a big issue. But this has to be dealt with. This is adds up to another 123 billion cedis of debt. And this has to be dealt with, right? And you see the components: cocoa bills, US dollar bonds, pension funds, Bank of Ghana, local currency. This is really the issue. What we've seen has dealt with government bonds and notes. What we've seen has dealt with Dachi, ESLA. This has to be dealt with. So, two things. We're doing well for, rather three things. We're doing well for time. We're under pressure, but we're doing well for time. Two, as for the president, he will sign. That dance is just a dance. Three, there's still a lot of issues we have to deal with.
That's interesting. And that's Mr. Joe Jackson, as the Director of Operations at Dalex Finance, walking us through where we are in terms of our engagement with the IMF. And he talks about the fact that whether we like it or not, there's going to be a domestic debt restructuring part 2. But when you read the statements that have been issued about this domestic debt part 2, it appears that the finance ministry is not being very categorical. But there's a certain attempt to do that, and you can read, if you read the statement quite carefully, something is definitely going to happen, and it has to happen because we have to bring our debts to a more sustainable level. Remember that in all of this, in 2028, the IMF World Bank expects us to bring our debt to GDP to 55%, and you can only do that when you bring these debts down. Now, Dr. Joseph Obing is back. Let's conclude with him. Doc, you were telling us about asking the central bank to bring down the monetary policy rate.
Yeah, it is important. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yeah, it is very important because their method is not helping fight inflation, and that it is only compounding the problem of inflation, and it's not well for the businesses in Ghana, and that's why we say that after government sustaining the stability, and then customs reducing the valuation rate, Bank of Ghana should also drastically reduce the monetary policy rate, and then also we should also manage speculation around the forest, because most times the way we speculate around the forest also lead it to to rise. And then, having said all this, we said that what is the bit from the traders? How can we also help break down inflation? And that's where people have confused our statement. We said that our bit is also to respond to the downward trend of the forest. So whenever the forest estate goes down or the city stabilizes, we should also respond and then adjust our prices on those downward exchange rates, so that the consuming public will also be mitigated. And that when we do that, we are also supporting the fight of for the taxes that we petition the president. We send our petition to the trade minister to give to the president. We are all the trading community, all the business community in Ghana, there's no tax that has come that all of us have come together and fight against this particular three taxes that is being introduced, because it's counterproductive, it's going to destroy businesses. Moreover, no consultation was done, as it has been being the norm. When there's a new tax, we sit down around the table, and then stakeholder engagement takes place, so that we all dissect and find a proper distance, so that we can all hold the task together. But this particular one, it is being imposed on us. We wrote a petition to Parliament to suspend, so that we do this engagement, so that we can all prefer on alternative and suitable alternative to the IMF. We are not saying that government should not present anything to IMF, but it depends on your dialogue. IMF itself does not seek the destruction of businesses. It does not augur well for IMF. IMF will only tell you, we want you to enhance your revenue collection, and how are you going to do it? So you have to put on the table what will help you and then help your citizenry. But in this particular case, we took us to the slaughterhouse, the businesses. And that's why we say that the taxes are enough. We are already overburdened by taxes. And it's too much. The taxes that we pay here is too much. If we apply efficiency in the tax collection itself, the tax that we can get in this country is too much. It will be too much for us. But because we do not apply efficiency in the tax collection system, there's no compliance. And so all that we have to ensure is compliance. And when we are able to comply with the taxes, those numerous taxes we are already paying, we can have more than enough. And then the taxes are being paid by just a few of us. Just a few of us. But Ghana Revenue Service says that their research says about 13 million Ghanaians have the capacity to pay taxes, but only about 5 million is captured into the tax net. What does it tell you? But even that, with all these small numbers that we have, the taxpayers and all that, we have been able to achieve revenue targets for the last couple of years. Revenue targets have been achieved and exceeded. And so if you exceed your revenue target and it's still not sufficient for you, then you have to go and look at your expenditure. It's as simple as that. But you cannot compound these programs on us. And we have said that we should have sat down and then we could all prefer different alternatives, like sealing the loopholes in the system, taking serious look at the tax exemption policy, where if we are able to do that, we can save about 2 billion, and that the leakages at the free zones, leakages at the warehousing system, and all that, and then ultimately toning down our expenditure and ensuring
it's unfortunate we've lost him again. Doc, but I want to really thank you very much for making time to join us. I guess that the point has been made. The import of your submission, I think, has been gotten by all of us. And so, Doc, I would want to thank you so very much for your time. But maybe the question I'm going to ask Mr. Joe Jackson before I come to Beatrice and Saka Saleh is this. Now, hasn't the horse already bolted? Because these revenue bills that, or these three new taxes that Guta and the rest of these other business communities are complaining about, like you said, it's the president is going to sign. So if the president is going to sign, isn't this advocacy an exercise in futility? Because, from what you've just said, the president doesn't have any option. He has to sign.
I actually find that it is an attempt to play the match after the final whistle
has been blown.
Right? Maybe the match commissioner hasn't sent his report yet, but the match is over. Right? If there was any protest, it should have been done before.
Well, he said it was a surprise that was sprung on them.
Yes, but the bill was put to Parliament.
To be fair to them, they went to Parliament, they engaged the Speaker of Parliament, they did all the things that they believe they could do, but it's, it's just the work.
You see, one of the things we don't do is we don't engage our parliamentarians. And parliamentarians don't feel the heat. So when they don't do the right thing or they allow their own personal and other motives to get in place, we should, as people, put parliamentarians under the heat.
Right.
And say, we don't want this. And if you're going to vote for this, do it knowing that we, the people, are going to be angry with you.
Right.
But we don't.
Okay.
So, but the key thing is this. Listen, let nobody be confused. We have borrowed so badly. We're going to need both revenue and expenditure cuts, revenue enhancements and expenditure cuts to get to some modicum of normality.
But that then raises a question. I wanted to ask you this, that, when you read the economic literature, you'll be told that in order to bring your debt to a more sustainable level, there's three things you need to do. You either engage in fiscal adjustment, not either, but you have to engage in fiscal adjustment, you have to engage in structural reforms, and then you have to engage in debt operations or debt restructuring. But what I see from the government's posture is that there's an attempt to focus more on debt operations and little on fiscal adjustment and structural reforms. Why do you think that's the case?
Because
what's happening is that we are making the lives of our creditors very, very uncomfortable.
But the truth
with a focus on taking away what is it that is due to them.
Let me tell you one of the things that happened. Because of our pride, because we didn't go for help early, we are in a dire situation. It's like I have a sore I'm diabetic. I have a sore on my foot. I say, no, I won't allow you to do anything to it. Me, I won't allow you to do anything. So we get to the point where now it's my toe. I still say I won't allow you to do anything to it. Now we've reached the point where my foot has to be amputated. Is it painful? Yes. At this moment, we're talking about amputating the foot, taking a haircut, surviving. Then we can start talking about structural reforms. So if you see that there is an emphasis on debt operations, it's because they have to amputate the foot.
See.
And it is going to be painful. And there's going to be a few years to recover.
Right.
It's not because we all know there are structural reforms that are required.
Right.
Anyway, hey, we've said this since
again.
I was in secondary school,
Yeah.
that we are a Gaggisberg economy, that we need to do this. How old am I now? How many years have passed? Please.
Okay, hold on a second. But now, Mr. Joe Jackson will leave us at some point because this with our next topic is pure politics. He may not necessarily be interested in that, even though he may have a comment or two to pass before he takes leave of us. But let me come to Beatrice Annan. First, again, congratulations. For your promotion to become the deputy spokesperson for the JM campaign. First of all, how's it going? I'm going to ask you some questions about the economy, but so far, how's the campaign going?
Well, so far, the campaign has been very impressive. I think that the delegates have welcomed us. Going around the country, I think one thing that is so clear is that there is an economic mess that everybody's going through. The feedback is that because of where we find ourselves, we in the NDC, in presenting the candidate, also present somebody who has that experience. Because we've seen what inexperience can do sometimes. And we think that within the sphere of the NDC, President Mahama is the one with the most experience. So the delegates understand the assignment. Everywhere we've gone has been 100% endorsement. Some people say that it's even needless for us to have this contest, but we all know that in tandem with the tenets of democracy is something that we have to do. So the feedback have been very positive. But one thing that struck me personally, this is my first time on being on a national tour. Not a campaign,
okay,
but the national one like that. Is that for everywhere we went, although the ultimate goal is to meet delegates who are members of the NDC, you find out that more young people who are not partisan troop in to listen to what President Mahama has said. And I think that is very instructive. We have a lot of neutrals coming up to say that we want you to tell President Mahama this, we want you to do this, we think that he's our hope, we want you to correct some of these things. Okay. And for me, that is a bit refreshing for me, that although we intend to go and meet just party people because we think this is internal, you have a lot of many people coming, market women, business people, young people, coming and say that we've had enough. And for me, Eastern region was even more surprising. And I think that the mood of the country is something government has to take serious. We are not on a good place. It is getting a bit scary, especially with no hope in sight. And I think that devoid of partisanship, the NPP has to come down from their high horse. They have to put the pride and arrogance away. If they don't have the competence to do that, they can invite some competent hands. We've been talking about consensus building. I mean, Mr. Joe Jackson is here. He can assist government in every way because they simply don't know what they are doing. And even before you invite me to the economy, I want to go there. If you listen to the presentation of Mr. Joe Jackson, if you listen to the finance minister, for the first time, he spoke for about an hour without quoting the Bible because he knows that you cannot do those gimmicks with the IMF. So I kept saying that I want to see where in 1 John or in Matthew would our solution be found, like he always wears white kaftan and tells us. I disagree with Mr. Joe Jackson when he says that in securing this IMF deal, the steps, record time. Mr. Jackson, it is of no benefit to the citizens. A government gives itself some unrealistic timelines, and 9 months down the line, we cannot secure an IMF deal. It is completely a waste of everybody's time to engage in the domestic restructuring in what will be described as a record time and come back to do a second domestic restructuring. Because the literature everywhere is guiding us that any time countries have found themselves in an economic mess like we find ourselves in Ghana, you don't do what this government is doing. There is no thought out plan and strategy as to how we can get out of the mess. I'm sorry to say that to the MPP, Mr. Joe Jackson, it has to be about winning the next election and not about making the lives of the citizens better. And that is scary. And so the very basic fundamental economic principles that everybody in the economic space and every expert expect that government should be doing have been thrown to the dogs, and they are focused on investing in Ghana card. They are focused on appointing MPP people into electoral commissions and position, and not focused on the fundamentals. They are not focused on calling Guta, civil society, and all other people to say that how do we go about it? Because the finance minister obviously has demonstrated that he does not have the administrative capacity to manage the economy that we find ourselves in. Mr. Joe Jackson, we've all been in this country in 2015 when we faced some challenges. The MPP said that we were not even facing 10% of what we are going through now. But be that as it may, we realized that there was a need to call everybody. And so in Ghana, almost everybody was represented in what we have come to call the Century Consensus. And we came together with homegrown solutions, and then the NDC began to build some economic buffers.
When you say everybody, that's debater because the MPP boycotted.
No, as for the MPP, leave them. When we are having very serious discussion, please don't bring the MPP in. I'm making a very serious submission.
Why would you say that?
They were invited, they never came. So let me make my serious submissions. And everybody came together. We had our homegrown solution. We began with the sinking fund, the many economic buffers. And what was the sinking fund about? Because we anticipated that we will get to a point where if we don't take care, we will touch pensioners, we will touch people's investment. You needed to sink some of the monies you were borrowing for difficult times. We could have used that money on elections. We could have campaigned and shared it for people's mobile money during election like the MPP did in 2020. We could have squandered it when Ebola came and said that we were fighting a pandemic and misused it. But if you are people of conscience, you may not get everything right, but you certainly will not subject your citizens to what the MPP is subjecting us to. And it's a shame. I mean, this is not partisanship. It's a shame that for once we cannot even admit that we have been irresponsible, we have been reckless, but in the next 2, 3, 5 years, what do we do to make sure that we stabilize? Because you see, devoid of the voting, economic hardship is a national security threat. When young people feel that there is no hope, when women cannot even afford sanitary pads. The sanitary pads they used to buy for 6 cedis is going for 25 cedis, and they cannot afford because inflation is eating the earnings of those who are working by well over 45%. It's a national security crisis because when people feel they have nothing to lose, they don't have properties to protect, they are not even in positions to make families, you can't control those people. And I would have thought that, given the fact that the NDC kept sounding the bell, we are over borrowing, we kept saying that we are going into an economic mess, we will fall into a ditch, assuming that all that did not matter to the government. Now that we are here, Mr. Joe Jackson, this government has increased its expenditure for the 2023 budget by over 53%. And they are not even paying their external debt obligation. And while we are all in the studio and everybody is saying that we have to engage in the expenditure cut, and everybody says it's as simple as that, with all the impunity they can master, they've increased expenditure by 53%. So how do you convince me? We are talking about fiscal adjustment. The government cannot adjust fiscally. They can cut expenditure, but they can raise money to pay for Ghana card because we have to go into an election. So we are sitting on a time bomb, and I have no hope and I have no expectation that this MPP government can do anything. Okay. Because if you look at the amended and restated debt exchange program they brought to citizens, and you look at the calculations, it appears that they've shifted all the debt till after 2025. So between now and 2025, the government is not committed on its part to do anything so that our lives can be better.
Okay.
This is the time that the government has passed an exemption act so that people in the agricultural sector are now being taxed for agricultural equipment, which until recently were tax exempt, because the government has to, find resources somewhere, and it's been implemented.
Okay.
So there is no hope, and my only hope is that Dr. Bawumia will now be an economic intern very soon. When Kamala Harris brings us the economic advisors, I suppose our vice president will now be an economic intern. I hope he learns well in his internship, because we are in crisis. There is no hope. They simply don't have the men they promise us. Now they are not even area boys, because area boys are taking offense that they can do a better job than the government. So I don't even know how to describe them again.
I heard your boss describe them.
I'm told the station people are also taking an offense that they can do a better job. So nobody should compare them to the MPP. It's as bad as that.
That was quite harsh, though, from the former
There
president.
is nothing harsh about it.
But to call a whole political party operatives as
the whole political party that took us back.
Operatives.
They took us back 40 years in time. What is more harsh about it?
Okay.
They took us back 40 years in time.
Let me come to Mr. Sakasalia. So if my understanding of what Beatrice has said is anything to go by, in a nutshell, what she's saying is take full responsibility for the economic circumstances we find ourselves, but don't just take full responsibility, but tell Ghanaians that you're sorry. You made a mistake, and you apologize, and you do a better job before 2024. I've heard the former president say the same. She speaks for the former president as well. What do you have to say in response to what she just said?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me take this opportunity to greet our cherished viewers.
Okay.
First of all, it's proper to put it in perspective,
right,
that when Dr. Jackson talked, he said that we were going to have a second round of domestic debt exchange. Indeed, this assertion was debunked by the finance minister yesterday. I don't understand why the finance minister will make an emphatic statement and will still bandit it around. The finance minister actually said that the MOU
right,
that we signed with the pension fund, the pension people, actually stipulates what he was saying,
right,
that going forward, they will have to help us. We sitting here don't know to what extent that help is, but we can decide to conjecture. If you conjecture, doesn't mean that is the truth.
Right.
It might be the truth, it might not be the truth. But the fact of the matter is that there is not going to be second round of domestic debt exchange program. And therefore, when he said it, and she also, once again,
right,
want to collaborate it, to let it look good, I think that we have a problem. You see, we have almost done with everything. If you look at what is there, the finance minister yesterday actually made it clear that we are going to do the cocoa bills, and then the local dollar, bonds. But those ones are just a matter of course, as compared to the tedious nature that we went through, with the domestic bond exchange people. So, let's us be very circumspect in sometimes when we do the analysis. First of all, let me tackle the NDC. If I normally, sometimes want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
But all of us know, even the most obtuse person in this country knows very well that when it comes to the economy, the NDC come nowhere near the MPP. We have the history to guide us from the fourth Republican Constitution. Ever since we assume the reign of the fourth Republican Constitution up to now, if you take the Rawlings regime, take Mills regime, take Mahama regime, take John Ajekunkufu regime, the NDC come nowhere near MPP when it comes to economic management. The facts speak for itself.
Please ask for the facts.
Please, when you were talking, I kept quiet.
No, I want to know.
Please.
I want to write the facts.
Keep
Please
quiet
go
there.
Please go ahead.
Yes, I want to
First
add
of
the
all,
facts.
everybody know how credible the economic intelligence units are. The lead up to the 2020 election, they came out with their report.
Right.
And the report says that if Ghanaians are going to vote based on the economy, they are going to vote for the MPP because they have shown over the years that they are better managers of the economy. And that if they want to go to use the infrastructure as a yardstick, they might lean towards the NDC. I am not the one saying that.
Okay.
And you cannot say that the Economic Intelligence Unit were bribed to come up with that report. And indeed, any time, look at the number of times that we have been to IMF. Ask the NDC, how many times have they been to the IMF?
Right.
And the MPP, how many times? This is the second time under the MPP we are going to the IMF. After the HIPIC was not even because the MPP had mismanaged the economy. The HIPIC was as a result of the NDC mismanagement of the economy during the Rawlings time. Bear in mind, we announced that we were going to HIPIC in March 2001, 2 months after J. Kufuor had taken over power. So it was not because J. Kufuor put the country into the HIPIC situation. It was because the predecessor had already mismanaged the economy. All the indices before J. Kufuor took over power, shows that we were heading towards the ditch, and therefore we needed a reprieve. We needed a fiscal space in order for us to be able to service our debt. Come forward. When Kufuor handed over power to Mills, what happened? All the indices were good. Almost everything invariably were excellent, and they dissipated everything.
But you also remember that Professor Mills complained bitterly about the state of the economy that he inherited, and indeed you also recall. Hold on, and you also recall that the current president was then the opposition leader, said, "Stop complaining and fix the problem." You remember that? He said Professor Mills was complaining too much about the state of the economy, and that look, it's been handed over to you, fix it. You remember?
Yeah, because
that?
Like I said,
yes.
If you look at all the economic indices, the basic successes and everything, if you compare what J. Kufuor left.
No, I just wanted us to.
No, because I understand your question.
Yes,
I understand
if the economy is broke, fix it.
Oh, I understand it perfectly.
Exactly.
I am saying that you only measure whether he left a broken economy.
Okay. If
you juxtapose that one with what he inherited. He inherited a very bad, comatose economy. I'm talking about J. Kufuor. And by the time he handed over power, you cannot say that everything was rosy, but at least it was by far better than what he inherited. So if Professor Mills is saying that what he inherited was bad, how would he have described what Rawlings left to Kufuor? So that one was even worse. And I'm saying, if you just suppose that with what John Mahama also left Nanado, what happened?
In order that he doesn't lose his train of thought. Please hold on.
No, because we will. You see, please. We will spend time to discuss him.
Crisis.
You see,
listen
to me. Listen to me.
While we're going back and look at how we can fix the crisis.
No. Listen to me. We will spend time to talk about. Oh, please.
What has happened in the past?
Can you let me talk?
Yes,
I'm on the floor.
Okay, Saka, please. But I don't know you appreciate where he's coming from.
But I'll let you talk.
Going back into
when
history.
he was talking, he didn't comment.
No. I'll let you talk.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I wanted to make a point.
Okay, make a point.
Can we are in a crisis. I don't think even the president or the finance minister
dismisses the fact
that we are in a crisis.
So I am coming there.
We may
I'm coming
disagree
to
about
yes.
what caused the crisis,
Right.
but we are in a crisis.
Right.
Can we focus on the crisis?
No, we will not focus on the crisis. Do you know the reason why I said we will not focus on the crisis?
Okay.
When he sat here and when John Mahama, who is busy, so busy to guide his ways, is saying any and everything, and his people, his adherents, will come and sit here and say anything, and then you say that we should leave them, we shouldn't talk about them.
Right.
No, that's not what we're
we will talk about the crisis, but we will talk about them first.
Okay, go ahead.
We will let Ghanaians know who they are. That even if we are in crisis, it is better being in NPP government than in NDC government. You talk about Ebola. Did Ebola come to Ghana? for you to say, because look, under them, the economic, look, today as we are speaking, nobody is saying, unless maybe you want to pretend not to know what is happening. Globally, every other country is suffering. Every country, including the US, the UK, indeed, the IMF told us that half of the world is with them looking for support. Our neighbors around us, almost all of them are in IMF. Togo, Cote d'Ivoire, all Benin, all of them are at the doorstep of IMF, knocking. Inflation, all-time high, in the US, UK, everywhere. So this is not exclusive to Ghana. Indeed, when John Mahama went to Harvard to give his speech, he said that COVID-19 has devastated the whole world and African countries are the most hit. And that he was pleading that he should give us some time for us to recover and for us to recover from the devastating effect. The same person, a bundle of contradiction. The very moment he landed at the Kotoka International Airport, he changed his mouth. Oh, incompetent, incompetent. Incompetent, and when you went to where the truth will be told, that one you told the truth there. Immediately you came here, you changed everything. Look, in 2015, when we had all these problems, John Mahama came and told us, oh, we are having this problem because of what is happening in China and all that. And today, when people say that COVID and the Ukraine war contributed in no small measure to the problem that we have, he said, oh, no, don't talk about exogenous factors. Just talk about mismanagement. We are not running away from responsibility. Indeed, if you look at what we, in terms of the taxes that you talk about, when we came first, we removed about 18 different taxes. Some of them were removed outright, some of them were actually reduced. But all was just always ensuring that we help businesses to grow, so that businesses will intend employ more people. Okay. We have done that. But you see, if you look at what is happening now, to the extent that now, the finance minister told us that in terms of tax to GDP, we are one of the lowest in the sub-region, and even in Africa, hovering around 13 or 12, when the average should be around 18. And indeed, he said that a lot of people are not paying taxes. And those that pay taxes are only maybe around 90% are in Accra and all that. We have a situation, I knew very well, that because nobody wants to pay tax. And we are one of the lowest when it comes to tax compliance and all that. Now the IMF is telling us to show revenue streams that we can rely on as a condition precedent to the IMF bailout. We have brought all these things. If you look at the taxes that these people are talking about, I mean, these are not obnoxious taxes. These are taxes indeed. For instance, I mean, if you tax 20% on smoking, e-smoking, and then and fruit juice, what is wrong with that? All these things, those taxes, definitely there is no policy of government that will not affect somebody. It will affect somebody, but in the end, what is the general good? That is what we always talk about. For me, I think that nobody can say that we are not in a challenge. We are in challenge, but we are almost getting headway. Inflation right now is getting down from over 50 to now 45. If you look at the prices of goods and services, everything is stabilizing. Petroleum price, owing to the one of the most innovative policies brought by Baumia, gold for oil, has dramatically ensured that we decrease fuel price at the pump. So when operatives of the NDC get the platform, and then they come here and talk as if we don't know them, we know them very well. And we know how they mismanaged the economy under them. Under them in 2015 when we went to the IMF, what happened? We were unable to even pay for the thermal plants. I mean, fuel for the thermal plants. That led us to doomsday for 4 good years. As we are speaking, we are in challenge. But is the lights off? And when you talk, then they say that, oh, it's the addition of megawatts and all those things. When Dr. Jackson was talking, he said that if we were honoring some of the obligations, we won't have dollars, and to the extent that we will not have dollars, it will lead to DUMSO. So it means that DUMSO is not necessarily megawatts.
No, not necessarily. I have a problem with that.
Let me complete the sentence.
I have a problem with that.
It is not necessarily.
Saka, I'm sorry.
Let me complete the sentence.
Okay.
It is. I'm using the words. I'm choosing the words very, very careful.
Yeah.
I'm saying not necessarily.
Okay.
It's not necessarily, lack of additions of megawatts and all those things. You can have all the megawatts, excess and whatever. If you don't have the money to buy the crude, because if you look at the energy mix, it's a thermal plants that about 80 or so percent that we use, and those plants actually operate on fuel and gas and all those. So if you don't have money to buy all those things regularly, your country will be plumbed.
But you also agree that if you have all the money but you don't have the plants.
I understand that.
Yes.
But that is the reason why I was telling you that during the time of DUMSO, our peak demand, our installed capacity could actually, match our peak demand. And therefore, the problem was not installed capacity, but the problem was our ability to fuel the thermal plant. And that was why, the reason why anytime the West Africa gas pipeline, a company refused to give us gas, the rippling effect was so powerful.
Right.
So please, I think that all of us agree that we have a problem. That problem is not a Ghana problem only. Inflation that we talk about 90% of the inflation is imported inflation.
So the government doesn't want to accept any culpability or any blame
I'm
for
not saying
anything
so.
that's happened.
Insofar as
the
we are
concerned.
in charge,
Okay.
we will have to take certain blame.
Okay.
And we are not. That is the reason why I told you that we are not running away from responsibilities.
Right.
But let not incompetent people who had been given the opportunity to manage the country in the past and fail woefully,
All right.
come today
Okay.
and create and amount the moral high ground or the responsibility
That's
high
fine.
ground,
We do not
and
want
then
to
criticize
spend,
the party.
I understand.
The
We do not
government.
want to spend all time on the economy because we have Brian Champon to deal with, and so maybe when we bring out the Brian Champon matter, I don't know whether you may want to bring it back. Mr. Joe Jackson, I'm sure you have. What's your concluding remarks? Because I want us to move on to our next subject matter. But whilst I take 0244 097 934 0244 097 934. I should have announced this number a long time ago. I'm so sorry. 0244 097 934. That's the WhatsApp line, because some of you are sending me very personal messages that you want to know what the the official WhatsApp line is. And so it's 0244 097 934. Yes, it's on your screen. So, Mr. Joe Jackson, you don't seem to be that excited about this back and forth about going back into history and so on and so forth. But if you're done, that's fine. We'll move on to the next topic, and then you can.
It's very simple,
give us your
right?
right before you take leave of us.
We always try and play a game of equalization, going back in history, when we have a real crisis on our hands.
Okay.
And this partisan political approach does not solve our problem.
Okay.
That's it. If you want to solve the problem, let's deal with it. Let's be real. But
there's also, in dealing with it, I think one of the reasons what has actually triggered this conversation is about, in solving the problem, we ought to ask who brought us to where we are, so that we don't have repetition of the very factors that have brought us to where we are. I think that's what, oftentimes bring about, you've done this, you've done that.
Agreed. That is a conversation we will definitely have.
Right. But for now, we have a problem to fix.
But no, you have a problem. You have a survival problem.
That's fine. Good morning, panelists. Please ask Mr. Saka whether he did simple economics at SHS or O-level. He appears not to be speaking to the issues. Asari from Kumasi. Greg from KNUST Kumasi says, enjoying the show from here already. The economy is in a bad shape. We must all agree, irrespective of the party we belong. Can we, for once, as a country, come together as one and fix the impending issue? I'm stunned that the MPP... he says, I am stunned that the MPP still try to prove a point even in their gross mismanagement of the economy. I think the MPP should man up, take the blame, and listen to the competent men beyond their men, because it's a national security issue we're facing right now. It's a national problem, not in-house party politics of the MPP. That's coming from Greg from KNUS in Kumasi. I am MKE. I will and always blame you media houses, because in such a delicate discussion, you need to invite neutral persons with experience about the agenda, but not these greedy politicians. They don't care, the citizens, but only themselves. This one said the blah, 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 blah. Here we go. From this one, says that instead of the MPP spokesperson addressing the issue, and he is rather attacking the NDC. We have gotten to a stage the issues about the country shouldn't be a partisan one. Shouldn't be partisan. Address the issue. Simple. Good morning, Metro TV. Is Saka Salia Ghanaian or lives in Ghana? He's okay. Well, I don't want to read this. Okay, all right. So good morning. Would you believe me if I say the NPP man is struggling to deal with the facts? God save Ghana. Tell the guy to stop telling us untruth. Saka Salia is having problems with his blah, blah, blah. Everyone is saying COVID-19 and Russia and Ukraine war has affected every country. How many of them are rated junk? Kweku from La Paz. Salia is beating about the bush. His boss has mismanaged the economy through their criminal interests, and he says they are better managers. I'm sorry for him. That's Yusuf. Moro, good morning. The MPP is seriously fighting for the $3 billion just to use it for 2024 elections, but it will not be easy for them. And the threat by Brian the Champion not to hand over power to the NDC is just a statement of Bishi from Alaji Haruna in Ashama. Good morning, Bright. And in fact, you're making my weekend. God bless you for a brilliant submission. MPP don't have anything to offer. Coming from George in Abulsonga in Bolga. Okay.